Hi, Dani. How you going tonight?
Hi, Bert. I'm good. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And look, I think um, knowing your background and your experience is really valuable for anyone listening to this particular career journey. So, welcome to Career Companions Career Journeys.
Thank
Um,
you.
to begin with, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what your current job is?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Danielle Arrebola, and I am currently a talent acquisition manager at SwiftX, which is a fintech company based in Brisbane.
And what does SwiftX do, just for anyone who doesn't know?
Definitely. So SwiftX, I guess it's very much at the forefront. So it's a cryptocurrency exchange. So it's a digital platform that users across Australia and different countries can come online and actually trade cryptocurrency.
Now, in terms of top performers in your current workplace, how would you say they fit up against the other market, everyone else in the market?
I think especially so we're a bit of a different one. We're a fintech business. So we kind of compare ourselves to tech companies and also financial services. So I'd say we definitely sit at the higher end. Um, we very much pride ourselves on having a high performance culture. Startup environments are very fast paced. You have to wear multiple different hats. You can come into a day with one plan and nothing gets done on that list. You end up doing everything else. So I would say, apologies, we definitely have a high performance culture and we're really proud of our team members. I think technically they're very strong. We always want people who are very smart, who can come in, solve problems in different ways, look at things from different angles. But also, one of the most important things for us is just really about hiring good humans. So, people who are just friendly, like, I think it makes such a difference. And when we look to hire, it's really about the behaviors and the personality. You can upskill. Anyone can learn, they can gain experience, they can learn new skills, but you can't really change your personality. So at the end of the day, we just want to hire really friendly, nice people that you're like, I want to come to work every day with this person.
Well, how long are you there when you're in a startup environment? How many hours, like at the beginning, you're there for, you go above and beyond, right? And I'm guessing majority of people in the organization and you in particular, you've grown this company yourself. Like as the face of talent and you do all the hard yards behind it. Like you're out there headhunting people and sourcing them and really building that culture. So, yeah, what would you say it takes to work in a company like this?
I think it's really about your attitude. I think the biggest things is it's just having that attitude where you are okay to wear the different hats. Some people, they really just want to come in, have their one role, and that is absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with that. And if that's what you want, then big corporations are perfect for you because there's so many people and they'll give you your role and go, this is your thing that you do. So in that startup environment to really thrive, you just have to have that attitude where you're like, you know what, that's not on my position description, that's okay. Like it's a great learning experience. So just having the energy, being adaptable, and just really thriving in that fast-paced environment.
Now, in high school, did you ever think this would be your job?
No, I was a fashion girl, so very, very different. I always thought I was going to do fashion design. It's actually what I studied as well.
Oh,
And it's a funny story, and this will probably show my age a little bit. So I guess I actually started first off. I was that person in high school. I was like, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I want to do fashion, but it's not a real career.
yeah.
So I went to uni. I think I did one semester of business with a major in advertising, and they said, "Oh, you have to study quantitative analysis." And I just went, "No!" Like, I just knew that was never going to help me in business. I knew I would never use that in any job in day to day.
Yeah.
Apologies. So I just went, you know what, uni's not for me. I dropped out. I just said, this is never going to be relevant. And I told my parents I was going to study fashion design, and my mum just went, oh, finally. And I was like, what? And I've been so worried about telling my parents I was dropping out of uni. And she was like, oh, I've been waiting for you to like make that decision. And I was like, why didn't you tell me, mom? And she was like, you had to learn that yourself. And I was
Um,
like, thank you. Thanks, mum. You could have saved me some hex and some uni fees, but cool. So I actually went and studied fashion design. So I finished that. I was so excited to go into the world, be a designer, work for different companies, and the global financial crisis happened. So GFC hit. no jobs in fashion. Most fashion houses were really struggling. It's, at the end of the day, it's normally a tough business even when things are going well, but with a global financial crisis, it just meant all designers were pretty much let go. They might have like one or two senior designers, but they definitely weren't looking to bring on juniors. And that's when I kind of leaned back on my background in retail sales. So the whole time since high school, I've been working in retail. I loved people. I loved sales. I just got so much joy. So I kind of went, look, I can't get a job in what I want to do right now. So I'll just go work in retail for a bit. I worked in wholesale fashion, and I had a friend who worked in HR, and HR, I'm not HR. It was never for me. I was always like, oh no, like I don't want to have to discipline people and do all of that stuff and, follow everything step by step. And she was like, oh, you should, have you ever thought about recruitment? And at that stage, I had never met a recruiter. I'd never met someone who was like, my job is to hire people. And I really learned about it. But back in that time too, it was very common that to do recruitment, you had to have a HR degree. And once again, I just thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was like, recruitment has nothing to do with a HR degree. And most people who want to do HR have very different personalities to recruitment.
Yeah.
So it was something I'd always wanted to do, but I just felt like I didn't have that entryway. So I was working in retail for a national company in Sydney in their head office, and they actually, they came and said, do you want to come do recruitment for us? And I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I do. I've always wanted to do recruitment. So, you just have to keep chipping away and sometimes find a different way in. And that's where I really started in recruitment. I started my career. So, I was doing retail recruitment then. So it was very fast paced. I'd sometimes have over 100 roles, if not more. It was a really good learning experience. I think the company itself was not amazing. It was probably one of my first looks at being in a head office environment. So once again, at that stage of my career, it was all I knew. But it wasn't the best environment. From there, I got to that stage where I said, I think I want to go do something else. I don't want to work here. I'm not thriving here. I'm not being mentored here. I was the only recruiter, so I didn't have someone to learn from. So I actually made a change and I went to agency recruitment. So for people who don't know, I guess you have in-house recruitment, which is when you're actually within the company. And then you also have external agency recruitment where they will partner with different companies and help find those people, but they don't actually work at that company. So I went into agency recruitment and, it was great. Like within my first 30 days, I filled the most roles in the whole business. So I was like, yes, this is amazing. They'd handed me all of these roles and then they said, okay, now you need to go out and find roles. And I just went, oh, and that was the business development side of it. So love finding candidates. I love talking to people and reaching out to them. But on the flip side, having to call up random people that I had never met in my life and go, hi, do you need any recruitment help? And they'd be like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't know you. I'm busy. I did not have the skin for that. So I said, look, I know that I love recruitment. I know that I'm very good at it. Like I filled all of those open roles. So I can definitely do this. And I found another role in Sydney, completely different company. It's a company that focuses on water waste and energy and sustainability solutions. So very different. So I was very fortunate to step into a role there as like a mid-level recruiter, and completely different role. I went from hiring, I guess, people in retail and people in marketing to all of a sudden I was hiring chemical engineers and garbage truck drivers and roles that, it could be someone very blue collar frontline workers all the way up to kind of C-suite and heads of and all these really niche engineering roles. And that was a brilliant one for me. So that was when I really had a full talent acquisition team. I had an amazing leader. She's probably to this day still one of my favorite managers I've ever had. She just really believed in me. And I think that's always my advice for people. You need to find a manager that is going to invest in you and champion you and give you the tools and support to really uplift you. Like at the end of the day, a good manager should be looking to replace themselves and they should be training you for that position. So find your manager, find someone who's going to give you all of that. It can be hard, but they're out there. And that role was amazing. I learned so much there. They also gave me the opportunity to start working on employer branding. which is great. So if you don't know, employer branding is what businesses do. So I guess in the market, you know about them. You go, oh, yes, I've heard they've got great policies for women, or they look like they've got a really fun culture. So I guess marketing that employer brand out to people so that they want to work at the business. So having that opportunity was really special to be able to work on their employer brand, bring that into my kind of my house of all my different skills that I have in my experience. I stayed there for about 2 to 3 years, and a lot of that was through COVID. So at the end of that, we'd been working remote. I had relocated from Sydney in Australia up to Brisbane in Australia, so a few hours away. And just working remote was not for me. I think I'm a people person. I like to be in the office. So I said, you know what? It's time for me to find a role in Brisbane, somewhere where I can go in, see people, have a laugh with everyone. And I remember I was interviewing for 2 different jobs, very different. One of them was with a big 4 company, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great on my resume. It's going to be awesome. I was very mindful that working at big 4, it's a very professional environment. I would have had to wear suits every day. Yes, I would have been in the office, but, very professional, maybe not the most high energy environment. And then I'd also seen this ad for a startup, and I'd worked at a few fashion startups, but never a tech company. And it was just something about the ad that I said, you know what, I think I'm going to apply for this. I went in and I interviewed, and I walked out of there and I just immediately knew, I was like, I want this job. You have that moment where you just go, I really like these people. I really like the work. I can do interesting work where I'm solving problems and really making an impact. And you just know, you have that gut feeling. And I think especially with recruitment and when you're looking for a role, it is so important to follow your gut instinct. It will always tell you what to do. If something gives you like the little bit of like a something doesn't feel right, it's probably not going to feel right. So listen to your gut. And I just knew that was the role for me. And they literally called me 5 minutes after the interview and said, we want to hire you. And I said, well, you should probably do my references first and make sure I'm legit. And from there, I think I started about a week later, and that was at SwiftX. And since then, I think I was probably around, in terms of their hires, maybe around the 30 or 40 kind of hire in the business. We scaled the business up to about just over 300 people. And that was over a course of maybe 2 years. So it was a lot of recruitment. I did have an amazing team of recruiters that were working with me to support and really ensure we were finding the best talent. And then from there, like many companies, we are very reliant on the market. So there was a bit of a downturn. We did have redundancies. That was probably about a year ago. And now we're back to about 100 team members. So recruiting again, building the team again, which is amazing. And I think in my current role, the thing I love is, once again, it's allowed me to expand my skills and experience. So I don't just do recruitment now, even though my title is talent acquisition manager. I actually work on a lot of people and culture projects and work on a lot of our larger initiatives as well.
And Dani, you're really known in the marketplace for this. I think your LinkedIn is always buzzing. So if anyone doesn't know who Dani is, follow her on LinkedIn, see who she is, and actually get a real understanding of this lady, because she's incredible. Do you want to highlight a few of these incredible policies you've brought to the surface, and you've had the power to influence a company and their direction? Do you want to talk to a few of those?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a big thing for us at SwiftX, and any good company should really live by this, is wanting to implement policies that really support their people. So if you apologies, if you are looking at joining a company, it's so important to check out their policies. There's some great websites. Work 180 is an amazing one, which will actually list a lot of the policies that companies have and what they do to support different people. But for us, especially being very male-dominated industries with tech and finance, one of the things for us that is huge is diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially, encouraging women to join the business and making sure that we're retaining great people as well. So having really amazing policies is so important in attracting and retaining talent. So a huge one recently that we implemented was all around parental leave. So it was a wonderful, in terms of our leave for primary carers, we were able to increase it from 12 weeks to 14 weeks. I think, there are companies that do more than that, and we are definitely on that journey, which is great, but just getting that bump up was really good. We were also able to match, if women or any of the men in our business unfortunately experience stillbirth, then we're actually able to fully match that parental leave for them. If they have a miscarriage, we have 5 days for women in the business. I would love to get that to 10, but once again, it is a journey, but I'm really glad we've got it to 5 at the moment. And we're also really proud. We just actually introduced menopause leave and menstruation leave as well. So I think they're kind of, the hot new ones in the market, but they're so important. And what's been great is, we do have a very male dominated business, but the men in the business have been so supportive of it. They're all like, oh, I wish like my wife's work had this, or this is so great that you've got this. So it's had a really positive response in the business, which is wonderful. And, especially miscarriage and stillbirth, you would never want anyone to go through that. But I'm so glad now that we have that there. So if it does happen for someone, they don't need to worry about work. They just look after themselves. The manager also knows how to handle it because we have those policies in place. And it just means that, especially for females coming into our work, they just know that no matter what happens in the future, like we are there for them, we have them, and we're going to look after them.
And you just mentioned there that it's the policies and the manager as well that you look for in the interview process. What are some other things as a candidate looking at their managers? What would you say that they should really be paying attention to from your experiences in the past and present? What are some of the main things from a manager?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's really important, you need to remember in the interview experience, and I say this to all of our candidates that I talk to, as much as it's about the business figuring out if this is the right, person for them, it's about you finding out if this is the right company for you. Like this is the place that, we spend most of our hours at work. These are the people you're going to be spending a lot of time with. So it's so important to have questions in an interview. I always recommend these days that people actually write them down on your phone or in a notebook. Bring them in with you. It does not look bad that you've written them down. It actually makes you look better because it shows that you've really prepared for the interview. So have a think about those questions. But I think it's so important when talking to a manager to really kind of push down a bit more. I think a great starting place is always asking them why they work at the company. Definitely do your research before you ask this question. Look on their LinkedIn page, see how long they've been at the business for. And then from there, you'll get a really good idea about, maybe they've just started recently, maybe they've been there 10 years, but find out, what do they enjoy the most about working there? And then what are some of the challenges as well that they see? I think another great one from a manager is also going, what are your expectations from me or this person in this role? That way it's really clear from the get-go what they expect. And more often than not, they might they're very comfortable by the end of the interview. They'll probably let their guard down and really be honest with you about what they want from this person. Is it like the PD in the job ad? Or is it like, oh, actually, you're also doing this. I need you to do this. So definitely asking about the expectations. If you haven't seen a position description, it is absolutely okay to ask for that. You want to make sure that it's really clear what the role is before you go into it so there's no surprises.
Yeah.
So often I'll talk to someone and they'll be like, oh, they sold me this job. I went in on my first day and it was completely different. And, they end up leaving after a month or two. So really getting that clarity at the start of the process before you sign any contracts. And just also asking them, I think it's important about how do they communicate? Are they transparent? What's their management style? Look, it's always a tricky one because you'll get managers and they're like, I don't micromanage. I trust my employees. I let them be very autonomous, and then they're a micromanager. But what you can also do is I think it's so important to use your network. Like if there is a company that you really want to work at, it is totally okay to reach out to someone and be like, hey, I've always wanted to work here. Could I buy you a coffee and catch up sometime? And so build relationships in that business. If there's a company you really want to work at, build the relationships. And those people will probably be very honest with you about what the company is like, what the managers are like, and what the culture's like. So that's another great way to kind of work into a business and just starting to build those relationships.
And I guess for anyone at home thinking, I really want to do what she's doing, I really want to help people get to their careers, work for the company, and a particular company as well. What would you say your role actually is? If you were to put your role in a pretty bow, and wrap it up for someone, what would you say? And I know there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle because it's a massive role. It's not just a stock standard role like other positions. So, do you want to wrap it in a bow for anyone who's out there thinking about being a talent acquisition manager today?
Yes, I'm a corporate matchmaker.
Yes.
It is 100% matchmaking. It is a little bit of sales. It's about knowing people. It's about reading energy, listening to your gut. So I'm very much a matchmaker.
Yeah.
For me, it is about like, I'm like, as much as, I'm there for the business. So I've got my hiring managers, this is my business that I work in. So I want to make sure that we are finding the best possible people to join the company. But at the same time, I also have these amazing candidates and I want to make sure we find the right role for them. So it's really finding the hiring manager, finding the candidate, bringing them together and be like, you guys, you're going to love each other. So I think if you do naturally, I think if you're going to do well in recruitment, you need to have that little bit of that sales background. Like I said, you do not have to love business development.
Yep.
Internal recruitment is perfect. If you don't want to be cold calling people, internal recruitment is wonderful because they just hand you the roles.
Yeah.
And then it's just about going out there and just searching for really great people that you think will kind of nicely fit that skill set or those different areas. So if if you love people, you love sales, like I cannot speak more highly of recruitment. I think it is a great career pathway. If you're interested in HR, many people start in recruitment and work their way into HR roles as well without going to university. And there's so many different pathways that you can go as well in people and culture. So once you get that bit of experience, you could go into HR. It might be learning and development. It could be really growing in people and culture, employer branding. So it's just a really great way to kind of get that experience without needing a degree. And recruiters are paid very well. Even as a senior recruiter, you can be on about 150,000 plus super. So that's sitting up there with senior software engineers and some very experienced people. So I think recruitment, if you love sales, it's a great option.
What's the hard bit? What would you say is the hard bit to everyone?
Oh my goodness. The hardest bit for me, especially because I love people, is the best bit is when I get to call them and tell them they've got the job. And it's amazing because you get to know your candidates. You know what they've got going on in their lives. Maybe they just got married, they're buying a house, they just had a baby. And so getting to tell them that they've got a new job somewhere that they're so excited to work, they've got a 20K pay increase, which, financially is going to change their life. That just makes your day. Like, it just makes your day. But then the hard bit is when you have these great candidates and you have to call them up and go, I'm so sorry. Like, at this stage, like, it's just not the right timing. It's not the right role. But it is, when you've got great people that you have to say no to, you can definitely always go, look, we will keep you in mind. If anything comes up, we'll let you know. And I have had those occasions where it'll literally be the next day and someone goes, oh, I've got this role. And I'm like, I have someone. I'm going to call them. And they're like, oh, I didn't think I'd hear from you so soon.
Yeah.
So it's definitely tough when you do have to say no to people. But I'm a big believer, like, you build those relationships. And my advice to people would be, even if you're not successful with a role, make sure you connect with that recruiter on LinkedIn. Still send thank you messages to everyone you interviewed in that hiring process, because it is all about who you know. I'm a big believer. Yes, you have to know a few things about the industry and a role, but at the end of the day, it's more about who you know than what you know. So keep in mind constantly that corporate etiquette. Keep in mind, how you speak to people, how you treat them. And if you have still done really well throughout that process, more often than not, if something comes up in the future, they will think of you.
Or the next role that you go to, or someone in that interview process goes to, I interviewed that person. They were incredible, right?
Exactly. It is, you will be surprised, even like in Australia and globally, it is all such a small world when it comes to recruitment and working at different companies. So just everyone that you interact with, it is so important to just be delightful and professional, because they will remember and someone will know someone who knows someone.
Now, Dani, bit of a separate note about you. You mentioned design at the very beginning of this, and then that was something you were passionate about. I've got the answer for this, but I want you to answer it for me. How are you now? You've got this creativity flair, like you've mentioned. You love design. How would you say you're harnessing your creativity now, in different ways?
Definitely. So I think And it's funny, I definitely had the creative side when I was younger. I've done a bit of with employer branding, social media, and when I was younger, people would be like, "Oh, you've moved around a bit. Like you studied fashion design, then you did a little bit of like social media things, and then you've done sales and recruitment." And back then, 10, 15 years ago, everyone was like, "No, you just have one or two careers," and that kind of concerned people. And I always knew that it was a good thing that I had moved around and I had gained all that experience. So I kind of just ignored everyone because I was like, this is good. It's going to help me one day. And where it's really helped me is I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm also working on my own side hustle at the moment, which is an employee recognition platform named Emploi. So we're currently in testing and going live, but what it is, it's a platform where different companies can use us and to really create that culture of recognition and appreciation in their businesses. So it can be peer-to-peer recognition or recognition from your leaders. I just think in our world, thank you is just such a powerful phrase. And it's common knowledge. We've all grown up being taught to say thank you, but when you are so busy at work and you just go from one thing to the other, you can forget to say it. And, it can be such a life-changing phrase for someone. Thanking people and appreciating them, it motivates them, it makes them happy, it actually increases productivity. And it's definitely something you can do to really help retain great people in a company and attract them as well. So I'm working on that at the moment. So we're very excited about launching an employee and getting that out there in the market too.
And I guess that just shows how passionate you really are about finding the right people, the right matches, the right culture in a company. Like, there's not many people who would see and think, actually, I'm going to do that. Like, I want that. I want that to be like the next best thing in the workplace today. And how do I make that happen? Because after COVID, let's be real, like no one's driving culture, and it's almost
It's
like a
tough.
workforce of contractors, right? Like,
Yeah, and it's tough. Like most businesses, they're either struggling, they want people back in the office full time. And so, they're going, oh, we just don't understand how we can get people back in. And then you've got companies that are like, no, we're happy to go remote. But then how do you maintain this really good culture when everyone's remote? And by having these tools that you can use on Slack and Microsoft Teams and with whatever communication tools your company uses, it can help connect those remote workers, or it can just bring back a little bit of fun and happiness into the office as well. So, I think at the end of the day, like I said, we spend so much of our lives at work, and it's just so important that people enjoy what they do, but they also feel, that they are valued and appreciated. And for me, I think one of the things that kills me is when I meet people and, they tell me about their workplaces and they've never been told thank you. And I'm really big. I'm like, there are great companies out there and there are great hiring managers and leaders. And if you are not being appreciated and valued, then use a tool like Career Companion and find a new role, because they are out there and everyone deserves to be respected and to be appreciated and recognized.
and can you explain to people what it is to make a startup? What does that mean? A new product on the market. What have you had to do working full time? What have you had to do that?
Yeah, so I think it's always really important to tell people, because so many people, they get scared with startups because they go, oh, but that already exists and this already exists. That is absolutely okay. I'm very aware that in employee recognition, I have competitors and tools, but you always need to remember, if you want to come up with a product, like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It is absolutely fine. There is a huge market out there. So don't be scared, apologies, of coming up with an idea if someone else is doing it. Don't let that turn you off of it. So, I've really done the whole concept from going, okay, this is what we want the product to be. I was able to work with some great software engineers that I knew from working in startups, some great designers. And once again, my advice for anyone that might be interested in more going like the startup, like entrepreneurial route, and they have an idea, is get some experience in startup businesses. Don't work in something identical because there'll be a non-compete clause in your contract. But work in something slightly different because, as I said earlier, it's all about who you know. And these people that work in, startups, new businesses, they want to help you. They want to see you succeed. They get excited about these types of things. So, instead of having to go out and pay, some software engineers overseas or people you don't know tens of thousands of dollars, you will start to build those relationships with people. And you'll be able to use your network to really help you succeed and build your product. So for me, it's being kind of coming up with the idea, figuring out the timeframes, running the project, bringing all the people together, and then really then looking at how do we sell this? What's the marketing? How do we take it to market? What does that plan look like? So it's definitely a big journey. For myself, if I was in my 20s again and I did not have a mortgage and a child and things I had to pay for, I probably would be that person that I'm like, yep, I'm just gonna go part-time, quit my job and just like all in.
Yeah.
But I have a mortgage and interest rates are very high. So for me, I've had to really maintain my full-time job, do it at nighttime when I can. So it's been a slower process, but I've been able to be really patient with that. And it's just about doing what's right for yourself. If you need to take that approach, I will always say, do the safe approach. Do not put yourself in any financial risk. Yeah. The best thing to do is ensure that you have that money coming in and then, just work backwards, go, once I'm live, how many users would I need to figure out if I could, redo my salary or maybe go part-time at my job. So just having those goals will help you get there. It's really keeping your eye on the prize.
Okay. I'm a founder. I'm picking 5 people, only 5. What 5 people would you say you need successfully to, I guess from the beginning, the get-go to launch? Only 5.
It depends on your skill set. It depends what your strengths are. I think it's always good to have your list about everything you need to do and go, okay, what can I do? What can't I do? With myself, I know I'm strong in sales. I know I'm strong in marketing. So I actually haven't brought anyone on in that space.
Yep.
And it depends what your product is. But so for myself, I'm a non-technical founder, which means I don't know how to code. So I have a tech company, can't code. Maybe did some great little HTML on my MySpace page back in the day, but that's the extent. That's definitely showing me.
Wait. We've got to tell everyone what's MySpace, just so everyone knows.
Oh, yeah. MySpace was like the prequel to Facebook, but it was cooler because you could have photos and music and like change the background and things like that. So think about the earlier version of Facebook.
Yeah.
So I'm non-technical. So for me, I knew that key thing was going to be needing software engineers. So I needed a software engineer because I cannot code and they're the people that are actually going to build it out for me. I think no matter what you do, having a designer is very important. Yeah. I think at the start of my process, I was like, I can go in Canva and just, make this and create it and design everything. And then we brought on a professional designer and it was a game changer, how your product looks. It's the first time your customers are going to see it. And you need to have that wow factor immediately, no matter what your product is. You need to get a really good product designer to help you, whether it's a website, whether it's, your actual product itself, a commercial marketing site. Bring in a professional. It will be much better than just using a Squarespace or a WordPress background and site. Another big one for us. So I think it's really important to have a good accountant. Numbers are not my strength. I am the creative, big piece strategy person. I'm not the numbers person. So for us, it was having an accountant. I would not recommend with a startup or an early business bringing one on full time. You do not need that. You do not need a CFO. It is just about having a really good accountant, kind of on a retainer or having that working relationship that if you have different things, you can go to them, you can get advice, but definitely having one that specializes in businesses, small businesses, larger businesses, especially pending, what do you want that outcome of your business? Do you want to grow it into the next Canva and, have it worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Are you happy to have it being a smaller business, keep it running? Do you want external investment from a VC? Do you want to just build it and sell it? So having an accountant that really understands that full life cycle and they can be there to hold your hand and make sure you're set up for success from the start. Once again, lawyer. There's so many legal bits and pieces that you need, from trademarking to copyright to just making sure your privacy policies, terms and conditions, any contracts that you're using, whether for maybe contractors you're using or contracts that you're going to give to customers. Once again, you do not need a full-time lawyer. You can definitely just reach out to them, use them when needed. Otherwise, there's some wonderful websites like LawPath that you can use as well if you're starting up. They're probably kind of like my top ones. And look, if I didn't have a background in marketing and sales, I would say it's very beneficial to talk to a marketing person. If that is not your forte, marketing is so much more complicated than we all think. There's all these different words and phrases, SEO, pay per click, and you need to find someone that really understands your audience, the market, and they can make sure that you're hitting all those right spots, that you're spending the right amount of money, you're not going too crazy with it, and that it's really effective what you need.
I'm going to ask you the question again. In high school, what would you tell yourself right now? Like if you wow, like looking back at your career, like even from the start of this interview, like what would
I would have told myself to learn how to code. I would have told myself to learn how to code. I would not need to hire software engineers. I think I'm an ideas person. And I think if I had learned how to code, I could just go out and build all of my ideas and save a lot of money. Software engineers are very expensive. So once again, that's why I'm very fortunate I married one.
Yeah.
I would recommend having them in your network. If you have friends, marry one, teach yourself to code. There's so many amazing coding courses out there. But I mean, knowing how to code, it really is the way of the future. I'm sure I bet you've probably got some other amazing videos on Career Companion about software engineers and their journeys. But it's such a great career pathway for yourself. It's very lucrative. You can make a lot of money. Junior engineers kind of come in at around $80,000. A senior can be on anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. If you're a great people leader, you can be an engineering manager on 200 to 300, or you could be a principal engineer, which is nearly on about 250 to $350,000 in AUD. So I think as well, as a female, they're always looking for females, so you can always kind of push that a little bit higher as well. But I think if I had learnt to code, I probably would have had a business years ago, because I just would have been able to go out there and be like, you know what, I can just build this myself. So I'm going to make sure, my children, they're going to learn how to code. And it is so interesting, because I guess, look, when I was in primary school and high school, we had computer class. You could do a computer as a subject, but it was like teaching you to touch type, maybe doing a little bit of graphic design on the computer. Whereas now in high school, they're learning how to write Python and JavaScript, which are engineering languages. And I think every child should learn how to code moving forward. It's just going to be the way of the future.
You said code there. What about your innovation streak? What about these ideas? How do you think the future's going to be? There'll be coders, I agree. But what about the future of innovation and, I guess, freedom of thought and creativity and imagination? Where do you think that came from, Dani?
In myself? I think probably from my parents. I think my mother was always, I had two very different parents. My father was, he was an engineer. He was an electrical engineer, so a little bit different. So he was very straighty 180, had grown up in a very traditional household. My mother was a primary school teacher, and she was just very creative. And I think just from a young age, I always had ideas. I was always playing dress ups. I just was always like making stories and coming up with new things. And I think that was just something that I was probably a little bit born with, but also like the nature nurture, like definitely having parents like that. And just, I think they just gave me the freedom to like let me know it was okay. It was kind of similar to like when I dropped out of uni, and my parents were like, it's absolutely okay. And I think that's so important for people to remember. I was talking to someone I know the other day, and she never went to uni. She used to be a hairdresser, and now she's working in a fintech company doing a completely different, amazing role, in content design. And she goes, I sometimes feel a bit lesser because I don't have a uni degree. And I said, no, guess what? They don't have uni degrees for what you do. Your job didn't exist 5 years ago. And I'm a really big believer, of course, if you're studying law, if you're doing medicine, yes, a uni degree is really essential. but do not let not having a degree stop you from applying for roles, or just putting your hand up to get experience or trying to work your way into a field. Uni is not necessary, and as long as you have ideas and you're passionate, there are so many different career pathways and ways in which you can go.
Alrighty. Well, I think I've grilled you enough tonight. But look, thank you for joining us. And I'm so excited, honestly, to see where Employee lands, because I think right now, more than ever, culture in the workplace should be at the forefront of every CEO's, CTO, CIO, any C-suite level. If you're not thinking about the culture in your workplace, I think you're going to have a really big problem in a couple of years. So,
100%. And look, my final note to everyone is just remember to say thank you, guys. Just think about, whoever you see in the next few days, just remember to say thank you to them. It might seem like just something in passing to you, but to someone else, it could change their whole day. So it's such an important phrase. And yeah, just put yourself first. You can do whatever you set out to do. And yeah, just be grateful, be appreciative, and just thank people along the way.
brilliant. Well, look, it was great catching up with you, and have a good night for the rest of it, Dani.
Thanks so much for your time, Yvette. Thanks, everyone.
See you. Bye. Stay.